I'll just make a funny face when we start. Uh, okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Chris and Catherine and Karen. And today we are talking about the verse 61 of the Tao Te Ching. And we are talking about that because we're studying the book Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. And today's kind of overall topic is about how humility is kind of the key to a great leader. And then, of course, how we can apply those principles in our lives as well. So, but before we get going, I want to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. So, guys, jump out, say who you are, where you are. Anything else that comes to mind randomly, like I'm just randomly talking?
Good morning, it's Catherine in Boulder, Colorado.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So you heard me in tandem with Catherine. This is Karen with the Phoenix whatever. I live in Chandler, Arizona. So I'm thumbing my nose at Phoenix.
Dan Sissick in Las Vegas, Nevada, where this week we are getting to be a little warmer than we've been lately. So I'm enjoying it, but I know a lot of people are not looking forward to the heat that's coming.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm still Chris. How you doing? Good to be here today with everyone. Good morning. And we come here weekly, and we're studying Wayne Dyer's Tao Te Ching. We go over a verse a week and then kind of discuss it in our own lives and how it applies. Thanks for letting me be here.
Oh, Catherine, I thought you were going to jump out.
Catherine already said and introduced.
Oh, okay. I thought everybody was kind of talking at the same time there at the beginning, so I didn't, I just barely got, yeah, Catherine. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you. I'm having one of those days where my thoughts are just all over the place, so bear with me. Let's just start by reading the verse, and then we can go from there. How's that sound? Who wants to read it?
I'll read it if I can get this food out of my mouth. Tao Te Ching, verse 61. A great country is like the lowland, towards which all streams flow. It is the reservoir of all under heaven, the feminine of the world. The female overcomes the male with stillness by lowering herself through her quietness. So if a great country lowers itself before a small one, it wins friendship and trust. And if a small country can lower itself before a great one, it will win over that, quote, great country. The one wins by stooping, the other by remaining low.
Thanks, Chris. So at the beginning of this chapter from, Wayne Dyer's book, as he talks about how we're all kind of taught as we're growing up to be number one, to get to the top, to be the best team, to get the highest grades. It goes on and on and on about how we're supposed, somehow we're better if we do these things or something along that lines. And yet this verse is sitting here saying, that's not necessarily the key to really gaining influence in the world or with your family or your friends or whatever it is you want to do in life. It's not necessarily the whole thing of getting on top and being the best. And, so I think it's interesting. It talks about countries, and of course, we talk about countries. I mean, we ourselves are a country of our own making, and and anytime we have these interactions with other people, it's kind of like, this is my world, that's your world, and somehow we think we're better than each other because of something we've accomplished or something along that lines, and yet when we hold ourselves up like that, it can actually make us look like less in the eyes of someone else. So what do you guys think? What were your thoughts when we read this verse in this chapter?
I think I'm going to need a little help with this, because the second little paragraph, I guess, the female overcomes the male with stillness by lowering herself through her quietness, just does not ring true with me. And I wouldn't mind being put to rest by somebody else who has a different experience. But going along with what he said at the beginning, whereas we're taught to be number one and so forth, it just seems to me that the person who becomes still and quiet, and along with that, I find kind of shrinking, that person, in my experience, isn't overcoming anybody. So I'd love to have you guys jump out and say, oh, you're wrong.
I think it more alludes to more of compromising, being willing to, weigh and look and see, okay, what in the long run will help me achieve and get to the ultimate goal of what one may want or something. But sometimes you do have to lower yourself, or you have to be still, or you have to kind of acquiesce and let other people kind of look like they're getting their way, but in the end, it's you who comes out the better or on top of with the better situation. And I think, you learn, going back to what you were talking about before you started, Samantha, how to win friends and influence people, the book you think we might need to look at next. Learning those things and how people operate and how we are with ourselves and in ourselves. I think that's, part of what it kind of alludes to, or at least that's my thinking.
Yeah, that makes good sense, Dan. One thing that came to my mind, and I was seeing what I was hearing what you were saying, Karen. I was thinking maybe he doesn't say. It says the female, but it doesn't say females. I think he's sort of referring to feminine energy, because Tao is very yin and yang. So it's, I guess it does say overcomes the male, but I think it's more of like in terms of energy. But I don't think that means you shouldn't stand up for yourself or speak for yourself. So I can kind of see your point there, but I think it applies to both.
You want to jump out, Catherine? Any thoughts? We can't hear you.
If you're unmuted, I would.
There you go.
I think it speaks to surrender. A little further down in the chapter, he talks about, he's writing this as he's watching countries war against one another. And he's seeing that, you can't out-war somebody else. I mean, you can obliterate them and, be by yourself, and then the war is solved. But, I think he's speaking to violence begets violence. And until somebody surrenders, nobody wins, basically.
Well, I can appreciate that very much. And it helped me, Chris, for you to mention that we're talking about female energy as opposed to male energy. Um, you know, which is likely to decide to step back and be still and quiet and still remain, uh, remain themselves. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, recognizing other people's ego needs. And because when we are coming from ego, our ego wants to be at the forefront. It wants to be number one. It wants to be the center of attention. And when we recognize that, it's not necessarily the other person trying to squash you down, or I, I don't even know what you would say. It's more that that person is coming from this ego state. When we can recognize that, then we can let our ego kind of go to the side, see where that person is coming from, and then try and work towards compromise or work towards a solution of some kind. It's like almost impossible to communicate if your egos are constantly butting heads, and you can never get anything done that way. And like with countries and all of this wars and all this stuff, it's like nothing's really happening. It's like they're just trying to perpetuate this continuous war just so they can show their dominance or whatever. And it's like if we would stop being so fearful of each other, worried that the other is going to destroy us in some way, and then try and actually truly communicate. And you're right, Dan, that this is one of the things this story or this chapter really reminded me of this How to Win Friends and Influence People book, because that's a lot of what it talks about is how to communicate with each other and kind of set aside your ego's demands in order to come out, to benefit both parties in whatever the situation is, and that's a huge thing, because if you can't, all you're trying to do is just put yourself on top without regard for anybody else, then you're not going to get nearly as far. And if you do get very far, it's going to be much on the backs of everyone else, and maybe not such in a great way. Karen, good to see you. Welcome. You can unmute or turn on your video or any of those kinds of things and let us know you're here. Welcome. Glad to have you. I can't tell how.
I was going to jump out and say one other thing. I think going back to what Chris said, about the energy, I think we inside ourselves do possess that, both that yin yang, that male, that female, and that goes along with when the ego and stuff, the male side and the energy and stuff. When I experienced that this week, and little be known to me, it had a very profound effect on me, and in some ways it's changed me and changed my thoughts and changed how I even perceive myself, going through this very personal little instance. And it's really made me look and think, and part of what's going on here, how do I move forward? How do I adjust, and how do I get this back to where both sides of us can feel that we're back to common ground to move forward from. So in that sense, that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now personally, and some stuff. And I think this chapter is poignant and perfect for me right now, because helping me to even look at things, even trying to look at it more from even a more outside of myself perspective, and go from there. And so in that, I see the dual sides. I see my side, and where I'm like, and then I see their side, and it's like, okay, they're doing what they think is best, for their side. Okay, how do we get back to a middle we both can coexist and go forward, and we both win. So on that one, I'm living it right now a little bit, I think.
I think all of the very best negotiators understand that the only real way to win is to make, so that it comes out as a benefit on both parties. And I think that's key for every relationship, whether it's parenting, whether it's siblings, whether it's your partner in life, whether it's your coworkers or your boss. It's, if you're trying to squash others down and hope that you're going to get forward, then, it's not going to work the way that you're expecting it to generally. Chris, did you just jump on again? Or is that a different Chris? I can't hear you. Huh?
Can you hear me
now? You say again?
Yeah, no, I had it muted. I brought it up on my computer as well because the phone is so dang small that I can't really see it.
All right,
but
cool.
Like now, my big ugly head is rearing its face on my computer, but at least I can see better.
Okay.
I'll be able to see all you beautiful people.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that must be what, or it's not exactly, but I can see Heron's logged in, but there's no microphone or video, so maybe she doesn't have that on whatever she's logged on to. But we're glad to have you, Heron. Either way, love to hear from you. We have a new Facebook group on Facebook, and you can find it by just searching for Mindset Mastery Collective, or message me and I'll give you the link. Where'd my screen go? Come back, screen. There we go. Okay, just lost my train of thought.
All right. Let's see. Where are we here? Let's go back to the verse here. Yeah. Great countries like the lowland. Wow. This is it's pretty old material. The world is such a complex place now. Try not to think about it, but anyway, there seems to be a level of humility and, like you said, being able to relate to another, having, what's it called? Relations. I don't know. Can't think of the word. Diplomacy. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of.
I just thought of an example. It's my husband and I when it's talking about the female overcomes the male with stillness by lowering herself through quietness and my husband and I don't agree on everything. That's just life, right? But sometimes because I'm kind of controlling and dominating, I don't know. I think I know everything. Yeah, I don't even know. Who knows? We get these ideas in our head, and then we talk to our closest people with, I don't know. It's not that we do it on purpose, but somehow or another we walk all over their feelings accidentally. I certainly don't do it on purpose, but I have done it. And sometimes I just keep trying to tell him what to do and how to do it, and he doesn't really want me to. He just wants to vent his frustrations or whatever it is. And so, anyway, there was this one day where he was just fed up with me telling him what he should do and how he should do it. And, he blew up at me, and instead of blowing up back at him and, letting my ego have its feelings hurt and be upset and all of that kind of thing, I recognized that what he was saying was accurate. And I had been doing those things. I was like, oh, hell, and so I just sat and I listened to what he had to say. And, he was mad. He was yelling at me and upset. And I mean, he was really, really hurt and had just was fed up. And you know, at first it was kind of like, oh hell, you know, shit, I really pissed him off. And but I sat there and I just kind of listened to him, and I quieted myself, and I let my egos kind of set to the side and not, you know, not stress about it, because I knew he didn't not love me, obviously. I mean, we've been together forever. And you know, it was just kind of letting that go and sitting there, and then just acknowledging, you know, I realize you're right. I'm sorry. I wasn't intending to do that, and I you know, I apologize. And that just completely neutralized his anger at me, you know. And you know, and it's interesting how simple something just as, you know, how it can be just so simple to just be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I was doing whatever it is that person is upset about, and acknowledge, okay, your part that you played in whatever the situation is, and then not let your ego jump back down their throat, because when you do that, then, you know, obviously that just causes more problems. I mean, that fight could have ended up lasting all night and the next day, and who knows how long. We might have just been mad at each other. But yeah, instead I chose to just be calm and quiet and let him vent his frustration, and you know, acknowledge him. And I think that, you know, that's kind of the key, is that acknowledging of the other person for, you know, whatever it is. And it's not just about, you know, bowing down and you know what I'm saying. But anyway, just an example.
That's good. That's, you know, that's a that's a way to make amends. You know, what I notice sometimes, at least, like, this is coming up at work, is that and this is definitely like kind of a work situation. I guess it can happen in it can happen in family situations too. And that is like when one person's like on the aggressive, or really blaming, or saying about telling another person what to do. Like, if it's coming off in aggression, like, you know, noticing that the person's putting too much pressure on the other person, like, apology has to do with that. I think apology is an important thing, because if you can't apologize, like I'll have someone yelling at me all the time, yelling, and micromanaging my every half a second at work, you know, and I'll be doing 6 things at once, you know, and I'm doing the best I can, but sometimes 2 or 3 people will start to yell at me, and or even just be ordering me around, you know, and sometimes, like, they don't notice it, or, you know, and this can happen in relationships too, but like sometimes a small apology sort of recognizes you and allows them to pull back from, like, being on the attack, rather than like just showing that they're like better than you somehow, when they're pretty much not. They just have like some work title, or, you know, whatever.
I'd love to hear a little bit more from Catherine, because I'm sure she's got some more, you know, thoughts about this, because you always have some really wise stuff to say, and I think you probably have something even for right now.
Well, if I don't, I better come up with it, hadn't I? Yeah, I think, you know, everything you guys have said today, we are all masculine, feminine. We all do have to pull on that surrender part of us. I mean, anytime we're fighting against something, that's considered more the masculine part of it. of the energy, and just the stillness, the quiet is the feminine. But it's difficult to surrender in the midst of a war, because our natural human instinct is, I mean, I can preach peace and world peace and everything all day long on my Facebook page, but if somebody comes up here and like smacks my dog right in front of me or something, you know, I'm going to be on them. We're going to have issues, and that's human instinct. You know, when you're attacked or something you love is attacked, you have the tendency, you know, you feel you're an animal. We're animals at our basic instinct, I guess. We feel cornered. We're going to lash back. And the fact you were able to do that, Samantha, and just give in at that point, like you said, it just changed everything. But it's difficult to do, you know, because we just want to fight back. And I think our times are different now, but as he said in the chapter, you know, he was watching warring countries. So sometimes I have to ask, is it really so different now? I mean, obviously our level of technology is different. And gosh, when I look at one of my little favorite lists, you know, all the sites that you save in your little list, when I just look at one of those, I think, wow, you know, I've probably just that list, and that's one tiny list, and all my other lists is probably more information than somebody in that time got in their entire life, you know. So we really are bombarded with information. Lao Tzu
When you say list, what do you mean, Kat?
Lao Tzu didn't have, you know, 90 messages waiting for him on his Facebook when he woke up in the morning to get back to, right? So things have changed, but on the deepest level, they haven't changed. We're still warring. We're still at war. We've been at war every year. I think since I've been alive, almost, there's been a war somewhere. And Lao Tzu has, you know, he boils it down to the simplest of simple. And the fact is, we have to stop that. We have to stop warring. And I don't know who gives in first, because, I mean, all of the countries in the world have way more bombs or missiles or whatever than what they need to blow the whole world up. So we can't out missile each other at this point. You know, we've gotten to the point where if one person pulls the switch or pushes the switch, that's it. That's all it takes. It doesn't have, you know, I know there's like missiles going on in Syria and stuff like that, but we have bigger stuff that if somebody decides to throw that switch, that's all it takes. We can't outwar each other. And so I don't know what it's going to take. They say that right now we're moving from years of masculine energy as a world, I mean, into the feminine energy. That people are saying the feminine energy is coming back in, and that's hopefully that stillness. I don't know though. I can be a pretty mean bitch. I'm telling you. They say that like women's prisons are the most dangerous and women's gangs are the most dangerous. So women are very, you know, we can be very still and quiet, but when you threaten something that we love, I think we're probably worse than the men. So I don't know how it's going to solve the warring issue. We're just going to, I mean, we understand that when we kill somebody else's child, that's our child. And hopefully, you know, that's going to make a difference. But I don't know, Samantha, I know we can be pretty tough when we're trying to protect things that we love. I've been that way all week. My son was hit by a car, and it's really difficult for me to deal with not being able to go to him, and you know, he has no insurance. He needs surgery. We can't, it's just a mess, you know, and I've been in a very warring mood all week because of that.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah. Oh, I don't envy you having to go through all that mess. And my prayers are definitely going out to you and your son and your whole family, and all
Thank
my
you.
loving energy coming to you as well.
It's worse on him, believe me.
Oh yeah, I know. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying. Just just hugs. Oh
That
man.
really works, doesn't it? It's so amazing to see your hands come forth and leaning forward is just wonderful. Oh, and I'm sorry to hear that too, Catherine. You're probably as aware of it as I am, but there's a woman who's talking about her son being run over and kind of doing webinars and interviews with lots of people, and has a lot to say. I always wonder, there's a lot to learn when you're far off from that. Uh, it's kind of difficult when you're right in it to be in any kind of a learning mode.
Well, I think that's part of what our earthly journey is supposed to be a part of, is probably hopefully to help learn how we can better coexist and learn to love each other the way, as for me and my beliefs, as Christ and stuff loved and things like that. That pure, true, unconditional love for other people, just in general. And that, I think, is where, if we can get back into the yin and yang and things and learn to understand that, yes, we all have our issues, yes, we all have our problems, yes, but when we come down to it, we're all humans, we're all here, and we need to coexist, and to learn how to bend low and surrender, for lack of a better word, to allow the others their time and place that they need at that point in time and place, because we'll have our time and place too. And by surrendering and allowing and stuff, we'll be elevated at some other point when it's the right point in time too. I think that's part of that learning and growing and becoming more aware of what's out there and what we have to give and share, but not forcing it on people, because we all hate it when we have it forced down our throats or forced on us or something like that, because it's not in how we normally deal or learn or handle things. But if we have our, if it's shown in a open and subtle way, or allowing, like, for me to process it and deal with it, then I can move forward and deal with it and incorporate it into what I'm doing and where I'm at moving forward, rather than when you're sitting there saying, I have to, and I'm like, no, 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 that type of thing. I think we can learn to take other people's strengths and add them to make them part of our strengths, and then our other strengths that are less qualities that somebody else might need, things like that. And it's that real yin and yang thing. And I think, that's part of a little bit of what I'm learning this week too.
Oh,
Dropping my
hello,
phone.
Chris.
Yeah. All right. Sometimes I tip over there. Yeah, no, those are actually like really admirable qualities, Dan. Those are like, the kind of qualities that we should strive to look for. I keep on the first sentence in this verse is a great country, and oh man, I'm gonna go there. Politics. I hear this. Um, I can hear some silly things. Trump quotes in my head. One like, "Oh, you think America's so innocent?" Something like this. You know, and then there's this is America first type deal. America first, America first. I can see like making having things be equal for people of our country and not getting ripped off maybe by other countries, but like I don't know, it's just a very like it's a very egocentric type of way where it's like instead of great, there's this term superpower, these superpower countries with all these nuclear facilities and all this type of stuff, and this is not diplomacy. So I'm kind of worried about, this kind of thing right now. Trying not to think about it too much. I'm not a very political guy, but it's not very it's not very heartening, the situation.
I deal with that America first attitude a lot, Chris. The business, actually, all the businesses I'm in are international, but the team that I have in the teams I have in other countries, Americans, one of our companies closed down the United States registration part of it, and we're still open in other countries, just not in the U.S. anymore for more registrations. And it was amazing. Like before they did that, everybody was like, "Oh, I want to, save the world, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to help all these poor people everywhere, blah, blah, blah." And then like the minute we got the announcement that U.S. registration was closed, they were all like, "Oh, well, that's it. I'm done." I'm like, what happened to saving the world? What happened to, building internationally? But it's very much a America first. If we don't have it here, it's worthless. It's such a it's such a very small viewpoint for people to take, because the world is a very large place and there are so many people in the world that are not in the United States, and even the people that are in the United States, like so many of them came from other parts of the world. If you threw everybody out, God forbid, I'm just saying, but if you threw everybody out and it was just people born on American soil, there's really not that many of us compared to the rest of the world, you guys, and yet we think that we are the end all. We are like cinnamon toast. We're, the bag of chips and everything. And we're really probably the most terrorists, however you want to say that, the way that we as a country go out and just conquer other countries. Oh, they have the oil that we want. Oh, they have this that we want. Oh, and we just go and take it. And we destroy other countries. We leave them in complete, shambles. And it's okay because we're the U.S. And it's a very, it's sad. It's just really, really sad that we don't have as much compassion for people that aren't from our country. Like it's, sorry, my phone keeps going crazy. Turn the volume down. And to try to, people are here complaining about the most, they got to wait 5 seconds for their webpage to load or some shit, instead of it being instantaneous, when other people are still walking miles for water every day. And I don't know how to fix that. Like I don't know. I part of it is our media, we kind of, I guess every country sort of builds themselves up in the eyes of their people. No country says, "Oh, we suck, go love that other country better." That's not how it works. And I know that people have to like look after themselves too. but there's just such a wide disparity between the haves and have-nots. Like somehow I hope that this incoming feminine energy somehow balances things out just a little bit. I mean, it's just crazy, and so many Americans turn their eye to it. You know, even if they see the pictures of children starving or whatever, they think, oh well, that's a scam. You know, that they're just scamming people out of money, and they don't even allow themselves to feel that. You know, to feel the fact that children are starving to death every day. We just tune it out because we feel too helpless. We feel like there's nothing we can do to change it. We feel like when we try to change it, it's a scam and the money goes, you know, elsewhere or whatever. We feel all kinds of things, and we give all kinds of excuses for why we don't help. And what I have found out over the last 18 months is that you actually can do something. Like you actually can help those people in ways if you don't ignore that they're there. But it's really easy to ignore because we're too worried about our web pages not loading in 5 seconds. So, you know, we must have our priorities in order here. Americans are very spoiled. I know that we have poverty here, don't get me wrong. I understand that. We have poverty. We have some of the same issues that other places do. But as a whole, we're really, really blessed here. And somehow I wish that, I don't think the other countries are like that. When I speak to people in other countries every day, they're not like that. Like they might think their country's great, you know, but they don't think that the whole world should sacrifice for their country. You know what I mean? Like they don't have such a selfish sort of attitude, and they're so loving that oftentimes Americans, I know I did at first, and that's why I can say this, oftentimes Americans misinterpret their friendliness as being a scam, or as, you know, what are you trying to get out of me? Why are you being nice? And, you know, all this and that, or why are you hitting on me? When actually they're just very, very loving people that express love. And Americans are horrible at it. I have to say it when I compare us to other countries. We're just very closed-hearted people. And I think we could learn a lot. I think I'm really glad for the internet being able to connect people around the world, because not having the interactions that I've had over the past 18 months or so, I would have kept that closed attitude that I was raised with, basically, and that our culture tends to favor, that we're the best. USA. Who cares if the rest of the world goes away, right? It's a very, when you break it down, it sounds so stupid, right? But that's actually the attitude that a lot of people have.
Well, that was pretty good, Catherine. Yeah, we definitely have like our share of problems. That doesn't mean every other country's perfect. There's probably a majority of good and humble countries and people who have, you know, good intentions. In a lot of other countries, there are like countries with serious problems too, you know. North Korea, China, Russia, you know. I'm not trying to name anything in particular, but these countries also have serious ego problems, and, you know. I mean, you know, I'm not comparing it to America, but there's countries with big problems, and there's some countries in Africa that war like crazy, kill a bunch of innocents. It's horrible, horrible. And as far as like what you can do, it seems like You do more than the average person, Catherine. I'm impressed. I appreciate it. I guess you know, when I think of the great people who have lived, though, they just did the best with what they could and stood up for what they believed. You know, so I mean, that's basically what you can do. I mean, okay.
Yeah, I've noticed over the years, and it's not so much that I've just noticed the U.S. I mean, I have, you know, I mean, I've noticed the U.S. They just seem to go in there and act like they know everything, and just, you know, whatever they think is the right way, that must be it, you know. And of course, you know, if we look back in history, you know, it's been the same way with, you know, what was it, the Greeks, when they're like trying to take, or the Romans, it was Romans, you know, they're trying to conquer the entire world, and that their way was the best way, you know. And then you move forward so many generations, and then it's England, you know, they're trying to conquer the whole world and squash everybody else, and you're the Catholic Church, or you know, it's yeah, it's sad that we haven't learned from previous mistakes, and learned that that doesn't solve anything. It never solves anything. And but even in even in like shows that I just absolutely love. I love Star Trek, the like Next Generation and Voyager, and you know, shows like that. Just, you know, throw them on when I have nothing better to do and just want something in the background, and I'll let, you know, and it comes up, and these shows will come on, and they'll land on some planet, and on this particular planet, it's, you know, the women are in power and they're squashing down the men, or you know, whatever, they have men as slaves, and you know, and the people from the Enterprise come down, and they're like, oh my God, it's so horrible here, how can you be this way, you're not right, it's all wrong, you have to do things the way we think you should do it, and everything you do is wrong, you know. And I'm like, really? You know, what happened to the non-interfering? You know. And you know, I'm not saying that it's right to squish down any people, whether they're male or female or whatever, but the point being is that well, and like some of them, it'll move in, and they'll show up on some planet, and they'll be like, you know, men with 10 wives. I mean, of course, we have that in the world, and somehow or another we think it's wrong. You know, well, who are we to say what is wrong or what is right? You know, that's right for them. So you know, I just find it so funny that, you know, it doesn't matter what it is or where you come from, is somehow or another you think that your way of thinking is the only way, and it is the right way, and it is the godly way, or it is the whatever way, and that nobody else is right, you know, which is ridiculous, because I mean, every single one of us has a different point of view on how things should be, or how the world works, or how you know, what moral values are, what ethics are, all of those things. And you know, I mean, and as long as we keep trying to force our thoughts down someone else's throat, regardless of what their lives actually are, then we're never going to have world peace. We're never going to have the solution to all of the world's problems, because nobody is really caring about them. They're just so trying to force it down the other person's throat. There was a post I just shared on Facebook. Somebody posted it. I think it was like the Tao Te Ching page or something like that. And it basically boiled down to, there was a carpenter, and he was talking to this other guy about this twisted tree, you know, had twisted branches and gnarled trunk and all of this. And they're like, well, we can't make it into a house, or we can't build out of it, so it's worthless, you know. And you know, instead, and then the other guy, he's like the guru or whatever, speaks back to him and says, you know, just because it can't do this one thing doesn't mean that it has no value. And it, you know, and this is the lesson that we have been, you know, avoiding for all of human existence, is that, you know, we keep trying to force something to be something that it isn't. And as long as we keep doing that, rather than to allow it to be its own beautifulness and work in a compromising way, we're always going to have these problems. So
There's something I'd like to mention in a different part of the verse. It's clear that Chris was quite taken with the great countries like the lowland, and I find that my attention has been grabbed by the next to the last line that says, "The one wins by stooping." And I was thinking, what could that really be? But as Catherine and Samantha were talking, I was realizing, or I was remembering something. I think I talked about this when I saw it. You have to remember that I'm a lot closer to the end of life than than every one of the rest of you. And I can't remember. This is terrible. I can't even remember think of the name of the country right now. But this is a country that while I was watching this segment of 60 Minutes, I was so overcome by what the country was doing for its own internal war, and it was a drug war. And the mothers of the men who had been involved in this war for it went on over 40 years wanted their sons to come home. And you can imagine within the country, everyone's basically got their sabers out. We know what we'll do with you folks when you come home. But rather, the country decided to hire an ad manager. Does this sound familiar that I talked about it before? The ad manager had them wrap trees at Christmas time. They only had, this is only a 60-minute segment out of 40 years. So they wrapped the trees in the jungle with lights and Christmas wishes. And, it actually worked to start to soften these guerrilla hearts. And a couple more ad things that went on is they flew helicopters over, where the warring was had been taking place all this time, and they put in pictures floated down of I'm sorry. These men as children, and so they would not be recognized. If your picture floats down, you're thinking, oh no, everybody's going to be after me and all the sabers are going to come out. But these are pictures that nobody would recognize. Who was this guy? This guy was in charge, and they were pictures from the mothers. Well, there were a bunch of things that touching. At least they touched me. I might have been the only person in America who was crying over 60 minutes at that time. This was actually a segment from a few years ago. I don't even know how old it was, but they got those men to come home. A lot of those men to come home. A lot of the ones that were well known and the ones that had done the most grievous things. And that country is no longer seen as the most dangerous and horrific country in South America anymore. And I just think that's a good example of the one country winning by stooping.
Thanks. Wow, I didn't know about that, Karen, but I also wanted to bring out, and that kind of leads into what I was saying. Reassess your personal view of what constitutes strength. This is towards the latter end of the chapter in the book. And it says, can you see power in humility, stillness, and remaining low and out of sight? And in martial arts, the strongest conqueror is the one who uses the least force and converts the lunges of his opponents into his own might. And I think that's a little bit of what you alluded to. The country used its own, used the least force, but used the force of the others and what was natural and use that to help change their country. I think that's how we can look and see how, even when by bowing low or stooping or remaining low, doesn't mean like we talked earlier, our strength is not there. It's just we used the strength that we have and incorporated along with the strength that's come with us and changed it into a more positive, powerful thing to incur that change or make those changes to move forward and see, the ultimate result that one was looking for. And I think that's something that, we can use every day in our own lives by learning to understand where other people are coming from. And it's usually out of the egocentric brain, because we're all about me, and we all are. If we are honest, we're all about me. I want me to be serviced, but if we kind of learn to get out of that, use our strength, that inner strength and that quiet strength, and use what's coming at us and turn it and change it and redirect it through the stillness, through the stooping, through the, getting out of the egocentric part and then sending it back out. It's a new and different positive energy that's being sent out that I think is coming out through as they say, the feminine side, and it can win. And that's, I think, how it does win.
Yeah, I love that story, Karen, and it reminds me of this chapter in How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. And in this particular one, the chapter is titled Appeal to Noble Motives. And at the beginning of the chapter, it says, we all crave to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, to be meaningful to the world and the people within it, to have it said of us that we rose above, took a stand, reached beyond, and did what was right and honorable and true. And I think that by those mothers, posting the pictures and sharing the memories of Christmas and those kinds of things, does it help those men to realize, who am I really? Am I really this gorilla, this monster, this murderer, destroyer? Or am I like that little boy in that picture? Am I that family man that hangs around the Christmas tree? Am I who? And that's kind of the lesson, is that how those mothers connected with those men who are so stuck in their strong ego demand to destroy that they had forgotten themselves. They had forgotten who they truly are, and that helped them reconnect to that kind of nobler part, or that inner person who, and I think that's probably the reason why nobody has flipped the switch, as Catherine said, and we haven't destroyed the whole world completely, is because we don't really want to do that. None of us really want to do it, but yet we have such a hard time setting our egos aside and allowing for other people to exist in the world with different opinions than ourselves. And once we can learn how to do that, is that then we can be who we truly all want to be anyway. We just need to let all this crap go and quit trying to force ourselves on everyone else. So everybody have, okay, so we're at the top of the hour. Final thoughts. Anybody jump out?
Well, I totally see about the surrender. Pretty much every situation that I get upset over, it boils down to surrender at some point. It boils down to, okay, well, this is what's happening and this is what we have to deal with. It doesn't matter if it should have happened, or, if we could have prevented it, or this or that, or 12 million other things. The fact of the matter is, it's happening now. And, but sometimes you need action. I mean, even though they decorated Christmas trees and they dropped pictures, it is their action that made the difference. So I think there's a difference between being still and surrendering and not doing anything. Like, there's a difference. You know, they were pulling from the softer side, but they were still taking action. I think sometimes we just have to take action, you guys. I, like you, Karen, I stay away from politics, but I got into, I found out about a situation this week that is just appalling to me, and it's a website, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of, the Silk Road website. It's a website where people could buy anything, regardless of whether their government had restricted it or what laws were against it or whatnot. People could buy anything on there with digital currency. And they were even selling some hard drugs and stuff on there. So a lot of people were like, oh, that's horrible, that's horrible. But if you just keep your mind open for a moment, you'll find out they actually did studies. This is going to sound crazy, but they did studies, and they found out that that website saved lives, because people, rather than going into the streets for their drugs and being mugged, or, you know, getting some kind of drug that was really not the drug, it was something else that somebody cut in there to make more money or whatever, they were actually getting, quote, quality drug, you know, quality safe drugs delivered to their home. They didn't have to go be in any kind of dangerous situation. What I didn't know about that site was that the young man that started that site, and I think he was in his 20s when he did it, he is being prosecuted for everything that was sold on there as if it was him doing it. He's been given double life sentences for completely non-violent. I mean, he didn't even do anything. It would be like these people that get killed. There's been several people that have gotten killed talking to people on Facebook, you know, and they meet up and it's really not who they say it is. It would be like Mark Zuckerberg going to jail for murder in that situation, because that happened on his website. That's the same situation with this young man. Things were happening on his website. They prosecuted him for those things, and he's serving double life sentences. He will never be out of jail unless this gets appealed. And you better believe his mama is taking some action. Like, and I will be, as a mama, I will be, because what if that were my son? You know, and that's kind of how I look at these other people around the world. What if that were my son? What if that was my grandchild that only had rice to eat? Or, you know, all these different things. Action is needed, not always you know, a sword against a sword or whatever. But I think that's brilliant, Karen. I would love to, if you have the, I can probably just Google 60-minute war something, but if you have the link or whatever, go ahead and drop it into the Saturday Morning Mindset Mastery Collective Facebook page, because I would love to read up more about that. I don't know how we're going to fix this mess, you guys. I do know surrender is a huge part of it. And, but I don't see, especially with Trump as the presidency, I don't see us surrendering to much of anything in the coming days soon anyway. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. Thanks, guys. I know we've run over today. We got started a little bit late too. See you guys next week. Have a wonderful week.
Okay, this is Chris signing off. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. This was a really nice talk we had. I appreciate the time we got to share together today. Have a wonderful weekend. Blessings.
Agree. Great to have been here and been a part of this. It was a helpful and eye-opening little part for me too, for some of the personal things I'm going with. So look forward to next time. I love you all, and hope everybody has a blessed week.
Blessings does seem to be a good word, Chris. Thank you. All of the rest of you that are out there in La La Land, come join us.
Awesome. guys. I just love getting together with you. And I'm so glad, Dan, that the lesson of this week is having an impact on the situation you're dealing with. I just love it when that happens. And it's funny how it tends to do that. You know, you look at one of these verses and you're like, oh, I could be applying this in my life right now in this way. Or that seems like exactly what I'm going through. And I think that's great. When we share those lessons that we're learning with others, then we can learn from them even more ourselves. So thank you, all of you. And for those of you who are watching, you'll be seeing this as a recording on YouTube. Please like it, subscribe to our channel, share this video, and search for Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook, or down below this video you'll find a link to get into our Facebook group. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you join us for our weekly discussions. We get together every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And there'll be a link below this video that gives you instructions, but it's just zoom.saturdaymorningmastermind.com. And that's it for today. There'll be some links on this video here also at the end that can link you up to our replays for any of our previous discussions as well. So have a great day. Awesome, amazing weekend, guys. And we'll see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.